Pushing unnecessary C-sections for convenience and profit. Doctors in the medical industry offer C-sections to women on the grounds that they make childbirth safer and they work around serious health problems during labor. But do they really? I do think there are some situations where cesarean births are necessary, but by and large, I think the female body is equipped to give birth safely and without too much stress, as it was already designed. There's no reason that birth, as a general rule, should be dangerous, overly painful, or damaging to the body. And many, if not most, complications during pregnancy and delivery are due to poor lifestyle, diet, and toxicity. It's been said that many Native American and African women gave birth with little to no pain, unlike their white counterparts, and that white women who adopted healthier practices stopped suffering so much during childbirth. According to early feminist Elizabeth Cady Stanton, quote, "If you suffer, it is not because you're cursed of God, but because you violate his laws. What an incubus it would take from woman could she be educated to know that the pains of maternity are no curse upon her kind. We know that among Indians the squaws do not suffer in childbirth. They will step aside from the ranks, even on the march, and return in a short time bearing with them the newborn child. What an absurdity, then, to suppose that only enlightened Christian women are cursed. But one word of fact is worth a volume of philosophy. Let me give you some of my own experience. I'm the mother of 7 children. My girlhood was spent mostly in the open air. I early imbibed the idea that a girl is just as good as a boy, and I carried it out. I would walk 5 miles before breakfast or ride 10 on horseback. I wore my clothing sensibly, and I never compressed my body. When my first 4 children were born, I suffered very little. I then made up my mind that it was totally unnecessary for me to suffer at all, so I dressed lightly, walked every day, and took proper care of myself. The night before the birth, I walked 3 miles. The child was born without a particle of pain. I bathed it and dressed it myself." End quote. The rise of C-sections seems to fit into the idea that women's bodies are not smart enough or strong enough to give birth on their own, and that females are cursed with painful childbirth for merely existing, and that we need men to help us. According to an article from chcf.org, quote, "From approximately 2005 to 2015, the cesarean section, C-section, birth rate rose by 50% nationwide," end quote. In some countries, such as Turkey, over 50% of babies are born this way. Nearly 10 years ago, about a third of all babies were born by C-section, the article also says, and it goes on to mention that, surprise, surprise, non-white mothers have higher rates of C-section, cementing in my mind at least that C-section may not be something to write home about. Mothers have overheard doctors scheduling them a C-section, saying to somebody over the phone that they have to make it to a golf game with their friends, or be home for the holidays. Coupled with the way they talk about women's bodies, they sound like the delivery room version of those guys who sleep with women and then run away and never call them later after treating their bodies like sex dispensaries. There are a lot of conditions that supposedly require C-sections that, according to some, either aren't that problematic or can be solved in other manners. For example, shoulder dystocia can be solved in a large number of cases by performing the Gaskin maneuver, named after midwife Ina May Gaskin, in which the mother simply gets down on her hands and knees. Laura Shanley of unassistedchildbirth.com gave birth to a baby who was breech, and another with the cord wrapped around her neck, with no medical intervention at home. There are also numerous videos online, even on YouTube, of easy or even totally painless births. Some mothers go under the knife because they fear their vagina and vulva will be permanently stretched and rendered unattractive if they give birth the exact same way nature designed them to. Ladies, heads up, if your husband isn't attracted to you because you gave birth to his offspring, he's not going to win any husband or father awards. You can't practice unconditional love toward a child if you cannot feel it toward your wife. And who wants a man who will train their daughter to believe that her worth is in her bodily attractiveness? Not to mention that different people find different things attractive in the first place, so who says being stretched is ugly? Sometimes I think these types of men are just massive perverts who want a woman with the body of a child who's never given birth. Ew, gross. And grosser still is that the medical establishment is more than eager to go along with all of this, just as they were with the husband stitch, designed to make the woman's vagina tighter after she gives birth, for her husband's pleasure. C-section is a very major and intense surgery, and in most circumstances it's going to be a lot tougher than vaginal, also known as regular, childbirth. A lot of this gets glossed over in the hospital because they try to push the surgery on women. And let's not also forget that the C-sections cost more than the vaginal deliveries, which should make even a blind person see what's going on with the rise of the knife. So always follow the money if you want to know what's really going on. Do you really think there aren't some doctors and hospitals who see the bigger profits and push women to get the surgery? Let's not be naive. Money is a very, very big part of the medical industry because it is literally an industry. And not just when it comes to childbirth. Children with normal childhood behaviors have medication pushed on them. Healthy adults are pressured to take pills, and women who are too old to be having regular sex are pushed into hormone replacements so their husbands can have a good time. Depressed people get prescribed medication instead of overthrowing the oppressive system and ending poverty and human disconnection. You know, that stuff. A materialistic economic and social system can also only function properly if the bond between mother and child has been severed, because children's needs, which are human needs, are directly at odds with the needs of a shallow system that enslaves everybody. You can't make people into soulless money-making little objects without detaching them from their family, from their mothers, their community, their sense of self-worth, their body, which family, mother, and community are all supposed to reinforce. Also notice that the methods that C-sections and other procedures, like abortion, induction, episiotomy, umbilical cord cutting, forcibly removing the placenta, ultrasound, forceps, the methods these things all use are by and large invasive and compartmentalize the human body, especially the female body, and especially the female body when it's creating life. If you can compartmentalize child from mother and even individuals from their own selves and bodies, then you can more easily remake them into an empty shell of a person ready to become a passionless, mindless worker for your factory or your corporation or even your government. So I sense that a lot of the painful and violent procedures that are done to women are driven by a hatred of the female body and of life, of connection, and that the subconscious instinct on the part of certain doctors is to cut and punish and crush and tear apart women. And yet the excuse is that it's necessary. But how many times have doctors and scientists in the past said something was practical or necessary when it was really just obviously them carrying out their own personal biases and psychological dark side? Confucius said knives are a symbol of killing and don't belong at the table. Well, perhaps they don't belong during childbirth either. Thanks for listening, and please like, share, and subscribe, and don't forget to use your own mind.